that traditional journalism is essential to the future of journalism. So there is always somebody closer to the story. If you can identify that person who's closer, if you can verify who they are, contextualize the content and information that they're supplying, and combine it with traditional journalism, that is the future of journalism. An essential part of the future of news is what we call the human algorithm. If you only trust the algorithms of these big web companies, you're not seeing the whole picture. The human algorithm is the skills of journalism that we provide and all of the major news organizations provide to know what a really good source is. And being able to harness and curate all of that information in a way that makes it understandable for an audience is an essential part of the future of news. The power of the information that is hosted on those platforms will only be truly revealed if journalists do their job. If they learn the new skills and apply them to those platforms in exactly the same way as they did to the shows that they're producing. Those skills are absolutely essential. And we owe it to that next generation, as we owe it to the audience right now, to make sure that they understand what they're seeing on those web platforms. And we have to do whatever we can possibly do to make sure that this massive flow of information that is out there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, is in some degree filtered and contextualized so people can understand it.
And about 11:30 on the morning of July the 7th, 2005, this picture came into the BBC. There was something in here about engaging the audience in our journalism, and that adds value to what we're trying to do. Every single journalist, from the lowest to the highest, have a decent understanding now of how the social web works and how to find what they need as part of their jobs. Because this stuff is just another source. It's another source in the same way that the wires are a source, that the papers are a source, that talking to a guy down, your contacts in the particular patch that you're covering is another source, and you need to be equipped to be able to use that. Journalism remains. We are applying those core values that are important to journalism: context and analysis and understanding, but applying those into a different landscape. Nothing changes with the journalism. Verification is an art, not a science. You piece together a view. You can't say definitively whether it is or whether it isn't. You take a view, basically.
But there's also another side of, I think, of user-generated content, and that is where your audiences begin really to interact with you, and then you have a connection, and then you can really work with them. It's not only a question of verification, but it's also a question of molding your public into a high-quality source, if you will. Just the realization of the fact that you can influence the quality of user interaction is just massive importance. You start working with your public, you start really molding them into a source that you can really act with. Let the people really know that you really value their effort. Good user-generated content is not free content.
Put most simply, my idea of network journalism is that if you take perhaps a professional journalist, and journalist is a very broad term, if you add in public participation in some form, if you add in the new technologies that we have, then you end up with better journalism. But I would argue that it's not the technology that's going to determine how people use that media. There is a changing diversity of possible media producers. News used to be that product. I would argue it's now very much more a process, a continual process. The narratives themselves are the property of everyone the moment that you make them public.
Charlie, for your benefit, you did not talk rubbish in Amsterdam. So.